Most high schoolers know the three letters that could decide their future: S-A-T. However, before this stressful, future-impacting, nationwide standardized test occurs, students have many opportunities to prepare, the most well-known one being the PSAT, the test before the big test. Every October, juniors at Oyster River High School have the opportunity to take the Preliminary Scholastic Aptitude Test / National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. As this is a bit of a mouthful, it's usually referred to as the PSAT / NMSQT for short. If students decide to take this optional test, it could qualify them for the National Merit Scholarship, depending on their score. This is different from the PSAT 10, which all students are required to take their sophomore year, that is truly just a practice SAT. This year's PSAT / NMSQT at Oyster River High School will occur on October 23rd, 2024. One could have a lot of questions about this upcoming test. Is the PSAT taken as seriously as the SAT? Does the current test optional age of college applications affect anything? Do students prepare differently? Is the test as important as it used to be? In this episode of Voice of the River, Mouth of the Rivers podcast, I'll be addressing all of these questions and more. My first conversation is with Shannon Karen, Oyster River High School's head counselor. My first question is, how important do you think is it to take the PSAT, but like the junior year period PSAT?
I do think it's really important to take it because it's an opportunity for students to practice, get a feel for what the test is like, what a test setting is like, because it is much quieter. There's a lot more guidelines on it than just taking a regular test in a classroom. It's much more formal and standardized. So the experience alone is really helpful for students to have, and then also get a feel of what kinds of questions they're going to see on the SAT. So the PSAT is a practice. It doesn't go anywhere. It's low stakes, and it's really just meant to help students prepare for the SAT that will count, and will be official.
What are the reasons that students usually have for not taking the PSAT a second time?
A second time in their junior year after they've already taken it in sophomore year?
Taking the junior year PSAT, sorry.
So there could be a variety of reasons. In sophomore year, we require all sophomores to take it. So, and they do because we're providing it. Junior year, they have to sign up for it themselves, and it is optional. And there's some students who don't plan on going to college, or they might get nervous about taking tests and will plan on applying to colleges that don't require a standardized test. I hope that no student won't take it because there's a cost in junior year, because we won't ever let a cost be a barrier.
Yes.
So if any student cannot pay for it, we will cover that for them. We want all students to have that equal opportunity and access. But I do think that sometimes is that maybe they just don't feel like they need it. They need it at that time.
Do you think the pressure of taking the PSATs and getting a really good SAT score, do you think that have you seen like the vibes shift with that? Like because of like the current test optional age where like most, if not, most colleges I feel do have that test optional score. Do you think attitudes have changed around it or pretty much stayed the same?
In my career, I would say I have seen a shift because there was a time where it was required.
Yes.
And so there was a lot more pressure to do well, to study, to take prep classes. And not only was there this internal, intrinsic reward of doing well on the test, but there were also those external pressures to have to do well. And that has shifted, as you said, with the climate of many colleges going to test optional. I think that gives students that feeling of relief in some sense, where they will still have many options open to them, regardless of how they do on the test.
Yeah. And then another question I had, and it may be my last, is do you think someone should prepare for the PSAT, junior year PSAT, which is also the National Merit Qualifying, as much as they would like the real SAT?
I think that's a personal choice if you're going to prepare as much, but I do think that it is worth preparing because you want to have a genuine experience with the test. And so if you at least have some exposure to the test and get a feel for it, then you're going to have a more authentic experience, and your scores are going to be more relevant, I think, of how well you're going to do. And then when you get your results, you can take a look at really what are the areas that you need to focus on versus what were the areas you just weren't prepared for coming to that test. And so I do think preparation for both tests is important, certainly, though the SAT is more important.
Yes. And that is all the questions I had prepared for you. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the PSAT, or like this year's in particular, or the SAT, or whatever?
For any freshmen or sophomores or younger students, to keep it in mind for every October that this opportunity will come, and that they just have to stop down in counseling to sign up. So I hope they take advantage of this opportunity and see me if they have any questions, or their counselor if they have any questions, because that's what we're here for.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is my interview with Lucky Mupala, a junior at Oyster River High School who is planning on taking the PSAT. So, general question, why are you taking the PSAT?
So, like, last year, I think all sophomores are, I don't know if they're required, but I know you can opt out of it, but most of them just take it, you know, because, like, it's the exam, but, like, it's like to prepare you to take the SAT, the exam that's going to help you get into college. But, like, I took the PSAT sophomore year, and I didn't do great. Like, I'm not going to share my score. It wasn't bad, but I thought I could do so much better than I actually did. So I, like, prepared over the summer. Like, I took this, like, PSAT, I think it was an SAT class, but it was, like, both PSAT and SAT combined. And I took a class, and I, like, want to see if I improved. I want to see if all the hard work I put in over the summer and even a little bit into the school year helped me, like, see if my score has changed.
So speaking of that preparation, so, like, you did that class, right?
Yes.
And, like, what did that class entail?
So, oh my god, there was so much work for this class. So it was, like, the name was, I don't even remember the name. It was just, like, they called it, like, an SAT class. But, like, they made me buy, like, it was, like, these giant, like, it was, like, I forgot the brand. No, I do remember the brand. It was, like, Barron's SAT test book, and then the College Board one. And they made me buy them. It was, like, I spent, like $100 just to buy both of those. And I'm like, why are you making me buy such expensive books?
Khan Academy is free.
Yeah, Khan Academy is free.
Take advantage of it.
And when I first started the class, I genuinely didn't like it, but, like, as I went through, like, the classes provided me with so much more information. So, like, the first one, it was just, like, introduction, starting, like, you know, whatever, we'll get to know you type stuff.
Yes.
But as we went into second, third, fourth class, specifically for English, I learned more English in this class than I ever did in my entire school career.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? I learned how to, like, break down, like, passages, like, structure and punctuation, all of that, because apparently punctuation can signal so many answers. I didn't know that. Would talk about, like, vocab words. Like, they made me memorize a bunch. I think prefixes they were at the beginning. So many prefixes. I had to memorize 40 prefixes and their meanings. And, like, they tried to make me memorize vocab words. I don't have the brain capacity for this at all.
Yeah.
But, like, there was so much to memorize. I don't remember the actual word, but, like, that was just the English part. But then they would constantly make us, like, do homework from, like, the giant textbooks. Like, they would make us take, like, a weekly practice test in the books, because they'd come with, like, 4 or 5 in each one. So each week there would be, like, you have to do both the modules. You would have to, like, count your score, and you have to tell them your score.
Whoa, okay, yeah.
And it was, like, really scary because, like, my English score was not the best, but, like, you know, it's a class. This is why I'm taking the class, to improve. That was, like, how the English section worked. But the math one felt like I was back in, like, pre-algebra in 8th grade. But actually, it was, like, algebra and pre-algebra, like, back in 8th grade, because they were just going over basics. And I think that was one really good thing, like, going over basics, because, like, I feel like the PSAT and SAT, I feel like it's based off that a lot. It's just, like, they overcomplicate it in a way.
No, exactly,
They overcomplicate the easy problems just to confuse you, and I feel like that was also really helpful. kind of forgot what the question was asking.
I was just asking about like the class and like the preparation.
Yeah. So like even for the math one, it was just practice. Like they would just make you like explain how things would work, or whatever, certain types of problems, give you formulas for the math, and like just make you practice constantly for specific math. But the English one, the English was actually so helpful. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I used some of the skills I was taught in this class during my English essays now, because like I learned about hyphens, like double hyphens and like the single hyphenated dashes or whatever.
Yeah, I still don't know the difference.
And like it was so helpful to learn these, and it was just crazy. And it was also like certain type of problems where they provide you with like a figure for those English questions. They like break them down and everything. They're like, they would talk about how like this is like a science passage, this is like a social studies passage, this is a humanities passage, and like those breaking down those simple steps would always make the answer so much more easier to find. Yeah. Like that's also like if and one thing, because the SAT is digital now, so like I can't even write.
I know.
And that's like the one and most annoying thing, because I do so much better on paper than I do on the actual screen. It's like the score difference is embarrassing a little bit, but like that's how the class went. And I genuinely I feel like I'll do better on the PSAT this year because of it. Like I'm hoping that I do.
I mean, I would be surprised if you didn't, considering that class seemed very like a little intense. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So obviously PSAT is there to like prepare you for the SAT. And it's different because one's literally called the practice SAT, right? Do you view it differently than you would like the SAT? Like, are you like less stressed about it, or pretty much equal stressed about it?
But for the SAT, like for the actual SAT, like oh my god, I'm like actually stressed out, and it's like 6 months from now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I know some schools are test optional, but like if I have the exact identical application to someone else, then my SAT score is gonna matter. So it's like, I forgot what you asked. I'm just ranting.
No, it's totally fine. Because like even though like schools often, I think most if not all are test optional now, but that for you that's not a factor, only because you want to have that like you want to stand out just in case there's somebody exactly like you, but you have 10 points better on the SAT.
Yeah. It's like it's something that can like help you, because like if your essay's not good, your SAT score will probably make up for that. I mean, your essays of course matter, but like someone can always be a better writer than you.
No one's like perfect at every single thing, Yeah.
So it's just like having that SAT score, I feel like is a little bit of a boost for when college, like admission officers or whatever they're called, look at your application.
No, for sure.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot more pressure on the SAT than the PSAT.
And then my final question is, how are you feeling about the PSAT? Are you nervous? Or you took that class, so do you feel like prepared or a mix of both?
I'm a little bit nervous, but like I think it's also like I'm caught up with like the tension and stress about me wanting to do good, that I actually will like somehow mess up during like the actual PSAT. So that's like one thing. But I think my overall feeling is like I'm kind of excited a little bit too, because like I worked really hard, like I want to do good, and that just like is causing a lot of stress. But it's okay, you'll push through. I'll push through.
Next up is my conversation with Jessica Lee, a junior at Oyster River High School who is also planning on taking the PSAT. So, first question is, why are you taking the PSAT for a second time?
Well, I think that because I'm eventually going to take the SAT, it's very important for me at least to take as many practice tests as possible to get enough practice in before I take the real thing. So that is why I am signed up for the October PSAT.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Have you done any preparation for it? Either for this one or for your first one, or I don't know.
So for my first PSAT, I did not do a lot of prep for it. I looked at a few questions like the night before, and then I just went into it and did the best I could. So that was the PSAT 10, so I don't know if that's probably different. But then over the summer, I did a little bit of SAT prep, did a little bit more of like answering questions on my own. I have done maybe like a few like practice tests by myself, but I'm just taking the school PSAT to get some more practice in as well.
No, for sure. Are you thinking about like the national merit like qualifying aspect of it at all, or is it more just like whatever happens?
I do think I would really value that if I were to qualify for that. And I think, yeah, at my mom's work, her company has this like scholarship where if you qualify for like national merit, you can apply for their scholarship there.
That's
so
cool.
that's definitely an opportunity that I kind of want to pursue. But of course, that means like getting a high enough PSAT score. But I mean, it's okay if I don't get it either because it's just sort of like an extra thing. But yeah, it's just an opportunity.
So this is obviously the practice SAT, preparing you for like the big one. Is getting like a good score on the actual SAT important to you?
Yes, it is important for me because I just feel like having a good SAT score can sort of show like colleges where I am like on a national like scale level.
Yeah.
So I do want to like sort of stand out, and I'm trying to put that effort in right now so that I can get a good score. I mean, it's a lot of work, but hopefully it pays off.
Yeah, I think it will. And then I know you want to like be like up there and get that good score. Does the fact that like schools nowadays are like more like test optional and stuff, does that have any effect on it, or do you just like want to get that score just so that's like yet another thing like you can do well on, so it shows colleges like you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I think going test optional is great because I know for a lot of people, taking a standardized test isn't a true reflection of who they are. For me though, I think I'm still gonna try to get a good score on the SAT before I decide if I consider the possibility of going test optional. I'd want to at least take it first and then think about it. But I think for me, I pretty much decided that I am gonna take it and try to get the best I can. Though I'm glad that test optional is an option nowadays.
And then my final question is, how are you feeling for this upcoming October PSAT?
I'm not that stressed out about it, because also it's just the practice SAT, it's not the real thing. And I have been doing some practice on my own, so hopefully I can get a score that allows me to apply for different scholarships, but if not, then no big deal, because it's just the practice. And I mean, even if I did not do great on the real SAT, you can always take that one again as well. So I'm just trying to stay calm about it and not worry about it too much.
Yeah. And that is all the questions I had for you. Is there anything else you want to add about the PSAT or SAT or test taking or whatever?
I feel like standardized testing isn't really the best way of measuring where you're at. Sometimes you can have a really high GPA and then you might not do so well on tests like the PSAT or the SAT. But I think I can see the value in having like a national like standardized test because every school is different. So I know that colleges, they want a factor that is like controlled.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a little bit of a stressful process, but I'm glad that more schools are going test optional, and we'll just see how it goes.
Yeah. All right. Next up is my interview with Ike Williams, a junior at Oyster River High School who is also taking the PSAT this year. All right. So my first question is general. Why are you taking the PSAT for a second time?
I got an unsatisfactory score the first time.
When you're taking the second one, are you thinking about like the national merit component of it or like the qualifying?
Absolutely. My dad qualified for that. And I know I'm not my dad. I'm not anywhere near the level of academic weapon that he was in high school, but I want to emulate that as much as I can.
Yeah. So this is your second time. It's obviously not like the SAT, so it's the practice, but have you done any like prep work for it at all?
I mean, junior year is hard, and you experienced that last year. I haven't had a ton of time to do much of that, but one of my after-school activities for today was canceled, so I'm going to spend some time looking through resources. My mom offered to essentially buy a class for me online that will help me prepare for it, but I'm intending to do some pretty extensive preparations, which I have 2 weeks. Not as much as I would like in terms of time, but I'll be ready for it.
So you kind of talked about it, but getting a good score on the SAT is important to you because of like your dad. Your dad also got it. But does the fact that like when you're taking it now, it's different than the time period when your dad was taking it, because now most if not all schools that I've seen are test optional when it comes to SAT. Does that affect anything for you?
Not really. I mean, I've known I want to at least take a shot at getting into a bigger school. I definitely started to think this far ahead much later than most of my peers did, so...
Next up is my conversation with Ainsley Beaupre, a senior at Oyster River High School who did not end up taking the PSAT for a second time last year. All right, so my first question is just pretty general. Why did you choose not to take the PSAT last year in October?
I didn't really feel the need for it since most schools don't require the SAT anymore. I was just kind of I don't feel like taking it again, and there's not really a big need for me to do it.
Did you take the regular SAT though?
Yes. Yeah.
So you thought that because we did take 2 PSATs, and you thought just the one that we took was enough for you?
Yeah.
Even though the PSAT, that one did have the National Merit Scholarship thing, did you consider that at all?
No, because I considered it, but I didn't get a good score on the original PSAT, and I was I'm not gonna get it. I'm not good at standardized testing,
Yeah.
so I knew it wasn't there was no reason I wasn't gonna get that.
Yeah.
So.
And then you were saying one of the reasons was because schools don't require test scores anymore. Are you going to submit your test scores to schools?
No.
No. While the SAT may be intimidating, the PSAT NMSQT is a way for many students to make that test more approachable. On October 23rd, many juniors of Oyster River High School will be taking this test, and we at Voice of the River wish them the best of luck.